All right, welcome to the next episode of the Podratix Gaming Cast. I guess that's what we're going with because I already put it on the thumbnails.
It works. So. It works. I like it.
The Podratix.
There's a certain charm to how much of a mouthful it is that I just really think is very special.
I thought about after it. I was like, maybe it should have been Gamecast. I think that flows slightly better, but it's too late now. I already made the thumbnails.
You need to do like. You need to do like more 80s slang, like tubular.
The tubular
Podratix Radical Gaming Cast.
It's a very early access podcast.
Yeah.
We just got the thumbnails. We still don't have everything locked in. We really didn't do any planning for this whole thing. We just kind of started recording. So
yeah, and that's. I think that's there's like I said, there's a charm to that comes along with that. Hold on, I can't tell if I'm like peaking because my audio looks like it's recording very loudly. So I hope that this recording isn't like bad. It's just like the waveform looks very, very powerful.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Should be fine because I listened back to it and it sounded fine.
All right, you scared me there for a moment. We didn't even do introductions. I'm Zach, joined by the. Should I just say Sophia? Do you want me to keep the ever amazing?
I don't have any particular preference. I'm Sophia. I'm here too.
How about artistically amazing? That's a little more specific.
Okay, sure, I'll take it. That's my whole thing. So
what have you been playing besides the obvious Yooka-Laylee?
I've kind of been dabbling in The Witcher 3.
Ooh.
I've never played it, but I've heard everybody says that it's a great game. So I'm giving it a try, and so far I'm kind of middle of the road. You
don't seem sold on it.
Yeah, I'm kind of sitting on the fence right now. I've heard that like the more you play it, the harder it gets to stop. So like I can kind of see that just from where I am. I'm still very early in the game. Like I've passed the tutorial mission, and I'm like actually like in the game where I can just go kind of do whatever. I've escaped from the plateau.
The Great Plateau.
The Great Plateau, and I can now ride wherever I wish. So yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting setting. It's very, very like grim fantasy kind of, grim high fantasy in an interesting way. I think it's really interesting. Like I did not expect that Geralt would be the type of character that he is. I think it's interesting how I expected him to be, like the typical like the vigilante sort of character where he's like, but he's kind of not. It's everybody hates him. And he doesn't seem like bothered one way or the other about like, if anything, he seems like inconvenienced by being a Witcher. It's really interesting. So I'll keep playing it and I'll give my full thoughts.
Okay.
Once
do you think that should have been your backlog game this week?
I'm going to count that as my backlog game. That's okay. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. I'm giving my backlog review early.
Gotcha.
What about you? What have you been up to?
I've been finishing stuff. Quite a few games, including Yooka-Laylee, obviously. Finished up Famicom Detective Club: The Missing Heir. Haven't played the other one yet, but I'm really torn on it, and I really should have brought this up during the remakes discussion. But like, okay, so the first part of the game and the last third, like the first and last third of the game are pretty good. They're very linear, but the story is well done. The middle third opens up for some reason and just gets extremely frustrating with how obtuse it is. Like I rarely rage at games and I was actually raging at a visual novel. I didn't think that was possible.
Oh, golly.
But like, it's one of those things that like getting stuck. I mean, I've gotten stuck in visual novels before, not knowing what to do, but that happens in The Missing Heir about every 2 minutes, where you swear you've tried every combination of options, and each screen gives you some new options and then takes away others. So for example, you have a travel function to go from one place to the other, but the entire like first third of the game, everywhere you go, you're stuck on that one screen until you find all the information you're supposed to get. And then it'll open up the travel option. So that way you know you found everything.
Okay.
But then like there's a part in the like I think chapter 6 where it gives you the option to go to like 3 different places at the same time. And so you just have to spend that much longer like not knowing which of those screens needs to be progressed to move the story forward. So like one of them, I think the solution to it was like you had to go to this one place that had 2 characters, and you had to talk to you started by engaging with the one character because you can only talk to one at a time. Then you had to switch to the other character, go through a certain number of options with that one, and then hit the remember option, which usually, because your character has amnesia, that's usually for your character remembering something about himself. But in this case, it was remembering something about that he had been told prior, like in chapter 5. And then you had to go back to engage with the first character that you already talked to and ran out of options to, and that opened up a new segment. So, like, that's the kind of garbage that you have to put up with. Sometimes you have to look at characters to move the story forward. So it's weird because I enjoyed the game and it was well written. It was actually written by Yoshio Sakamoto, the Metroid guy.
Oh, wow. Well, it's that was like a while ago because this was a Famicom game, right? Yeah, this was 1988. But that's another case of like they really could have updated some of this. You know, like that's some 1988 game design for you that they had the ability to update and just didn't because they wanted to stay faithful. But at the same time, I'm happy that it's even here, so I guess I shouldn't complain too much. Yeah, they didn't have to localize it. Yeah, that's I'm noticing that's like a recurring sentiment for a lot of things, especially a lot of things that Nintendo does, is that like this is not what I want, but I should be happy that it exists. Because Nintendo is so fickle. The Nintendo giveth and Nintendo taketh away.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, I also finished Bravely Default 2.
How's that?
It's an RPG.
Okay.
I didn't buy it. I played it off of a friend's account. I do an account share with one of my friends. So I was pretty happy I didn't pay for it, but they really liked the game, so that's fine. But they told me I'd like this one way better than the first one, and I didn't. It was maybe a little bit better. I got to a point where I put so many hours into it, I felt like I just needed to finish it. Not because I actually wanted to. I was like, I've wasted this much time. I got to see it through. Yeah. But maybe that's not the right approach.
I had a copy of the first Bravely Default, and I think the novelty of it being basically every every classic Final Fantasy game really hit with me because I'd never really grown up playing classic Final Fantasy games. So like I kind of got my fix on all of them in the first game. I never finished it. The best thing I could say about it is that the soundtrack is still really good.
Well, see, here's the thing. I did grow up with the old Final Fantasy games, and I don't like them, the Bravely Default series. So I feel like the series was... I feel like I'm supposed to like it, and I just don't. Mm-hmm. It has the exact same turn-based combat system from the first game, the Brave and Default wagering system, which is still pretty fun, but it's like... I've never played a game that felt so unnecessary before. Like, this doesn't do anything... The story isn't good. The characters are forgettable, just like they were in the first game. And so the only thing that's really left is the job system and the combat, which, because you're fighting 8 million enemies, gets old after a while. So
Let me ask you
I don't
this.
know why they.
Let me ask you
I don't
this.
know why they. Sorry.
Let me ask you how do you rate it like visually?
It's ugly.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say, like, if the story's not good and the gameplay is boring, then it should at least be a spectacle. And if it's not even a spectacle, then it's just a waste of time.
I mean, it's obviously subjective, but I think they tried to do like 3 or 4 different art styles at the same time, and it looks bad. Like the characters have like a weird chibi look to them, where they don't have like realistic eyes. They're just kind of like ones. They're like more detailed than Toon Link, but not much more.
Mm-hmm.
But then the rest of the characters look way more detailed than them, so it looks awkward when they're in these scenes with more realistic. I mean, still cartoonish, but like a more realistic cartoon human. And then like most of the environments are pretty well done. They look pretty like photorealistic, and then the towns are hand drawn still. And it looks like a mess. Like the monsters look better than any of the characters in the game. It looks like 4 different art styles that got mashed up.
Well, I feel like the first game actually, I recall it being better. I guess by virtue of being on a console with such a kind of a crummy display. The 3DS
240p.
240p. But like, you know, that you can kind of like you either ignore or you don't see some of like the glaring stuff, so it just all kind of like gels together better on the 3DS.
I absolutely agree.
You know, the smaller character designs feel at home on a system like the 3DS, whereas like on the Switch, it's kind of jarring against the realistic environments and the hand drawn towns and the cartoonish and like none of it feels like it fits in the same game.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the soundtrack's still pretty good. That's I guess the biggest positive. I don't think it's as good as the first game, but I do like the boss themes. Those are pretty darn good.
I still every now and then like I'll bust out that 17-minute concert where they did like the battle medley for Bravely Default.
Oh yeah.
That is such a bop.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think Octopath Traveler I mean, I know it's not part of the same series, but it's very closely related. I would say that has the best of the 3.
I'll have to give that a listen.
Yeah, it's very. I didn't particularly like the game. I just played the demos of it. Didn't play that, but I did like the soundtrack. So, also the one last thing on Bravely Default 2, the voice acting. So the game is almost fully voiced, and I would say about half of the voices are good, and the other half are like the cheesiest, most laughable thing. Particularly the main character Seth. Like there are some lines he says in battle that like literally made me laugh the first like 10 times I heard them.
Is it is there anything that comes close to Murgerger?
What is that?
So there's this moment in the first game where Adia, I think, or I think it's Adia, the girl who like detracts from the royal kingdom and is just kind of snotty and bratty, and joins the party. She's like stomping around and she's kind of like mumbling to herself and she's her like the text says MRGRGR, which is just supposed to be like it's supposed to be read as like a generic like noise of frustration, but she says Murgerger.
I don't remember that, but I didn't make it too far in that game.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean
the thing that I heard and experienced was that like the game has really good voice actors and a very bad voice direction.
Well, they did something wrong with the. It's like you're led to believe it's the main villain of the game. It's like the main villain for the first third or two. I guess 2/3 of the game, a little over half. And it's like somebody trying to do. like kind of a cheesy American villain mixed with a bit of Russian, generic Russian accent, and it's so bad.
That sounds awful.
And you're supposed to take this character seriously. He kills some major characters, and it's just like, what is that voice? and like the main character Seth is pretty bad too. Some of his delivery, it's not even his voice; it's more the way he like his line delivery that's so bad. Like some of the attacks, he's like, "I'm going all in" the combat segments. It's bad.
They just need to make a game that is like that capitalizes on the awkwardness of some like anime.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a hoot.
Yeah.
Well, okay. That's a difficult line to walk though, because like it has to be a parody, but you also have to be, and I feel like we're going to kind of touch on this when we get into our main discussion. It has to be a parody, but it also has to like be better than the thing that it's parodying.
Right. And with that, do you want to just get right into it?
Is there anything else? Haven't seen. Is the Steam sale still going on? I don't know what's on
yes,
sale.
It is still going on. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of garbage, a lot of good games too. But that's Steam for you.
Yeah.
I don't think there's too much news to cover. I guess the only big thing is I don't know if you saw Sony bought Housemarque. They made an acquisition.
I hadn't seen that. The thing I've been kind of keeping an eye on is everybody saying that EA is going to they're either going to make a new Dead Space or they're going to remake the series.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I haven't played any of those games, so I don't really have any vested interest in it. But if you have anything to say, go ahead.
I don't know if those are on sale, but I will put my 2 cents out there. I think all of them are great. 3 gets a bad rap. It's not as bad as everybody says that it is. 2
I've heard it's
best.
an excellent co-op game. Okay. I have the first game. I just haven't played it. Maybe that'll be October's
backlog.
Yeah.
I can't pick that one because I've already played 1 and 2. I played 3 recently for the first time, and I had a really good time with it. And I played 1 and 2 multiple times. So
okay.
I can't really pick that as my backlog because technically I've already done it.
Sure. So is there any information specifically about it, or just the rumor that it's happening?
Yeah, just kind of rumors that there's stuff like the official Dead Space YouTube channel updated its icon for the first time in however many years.
Was it 2012 or 13 that 3 launched?
13, I think.
Okay.
There's like I think like inside leaked information that it's not going to be a remaster, that it's going to be a remake, which on its face implies that they are going to try to do a ground up like rebuild these games,
right?
I guess reimagine them, get the core ideas, but like change the layouts and gameplay or whatever, but like keep the core of it. I don't know though. This is all just like rumor stuff that I've been seeing pop up in my feed. So
seems cool though.
Yeah, I'm super hopeful for it because they just did Mass Effect.
Yeah. Now, who would develop it though? Because EA famously shut down Visceral Games. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything yet about who people are saying would do it. Just that like a lot of people are kind of perking their ears up at these things.
Gotcha.
If it is on sale, I would recommend absolutely get all 3 games.
Yeah, again, I do have the first game. I would just need the second and third. And do you need a co-op partner for the third one?
You do not.
Okay. Is it significantly better? Is it like Resident Evil 5?
There are like I haven't had a chance of doing it, but I've looked a lot into it, so I kind of have an idea. There are like specific rooms that you can only access for co-op, and there are like really minor like character things that happen in the story, but for the most part you really don't need to do co-op.
Okay.
Like, you get extra stuff, and it's kind of interesting in the way that it does, because it's asynchronous. So like each character will experience different things. There are some puzzles that can be completed with multiple characters, but like you're not really going to be missing anything big if you don't play with a friend. And you don't need to buy anything. Everybody makes it seem like the microtransactions are such a hassle. Are really like what's the word? I can't think of the word. I don't know, slimy. I know that's the thing that like everybody says is like, oh, they ruined the game with microtransactions, and like microtransactions are basically for like, you have this little robot that you can send to find materials, and it's like it takes like 20 minutes to find stuff, and like in that time you're playing the game. So
okay.
And you're constantly finding like new parts to build guns. That we got to have a discussion about Dead Space 3 at some point. that should be one of our book club games, because I would love to talk about it.
That'd be cool. Maybe even do some of it together.
Yeah.
Are we ready for the big one?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's get it over with.
So, Yooka-Laylee, you just beat it today, as of the time of this recording. Yes.
I kind of rushed to beat it, and it's a good thing that I started early, because it took me a lot longer than I expected to finish it. But I did it.
Do you want to start with the good?
Let's kind of like contextualize. Let's like kind of lay some groundwork here. Like, what is this game? So Yooka-Laylee is a 3D platformer in the same vein as the games like Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64, very largely 64 era mascot platformers.
And developed by a team of ex-Rareware developers with some new blood.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Who are, if you don't know, very famous for making games like Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day. Basically the gold boys of the N64 in a lot of people's minds. I do not remember what year they started. It's been a bit, hasn't it?
Ooh. Was it 2014 or 15?
15, I think. I want to say 15.
Okay, so it was only like a little over 2 years then? Or 2 years exactly?
I don't think that it went on for very long. They launched a Kickstarter a few years ago to fund a game like those classic platformers that you grew up with. And they absolutely like smashed their goal. I don't remember. I think they might have like hit every single one of their stretch goals.
Huh. I know some of the base goals were like hit in the first day. It was insane.
Yeah. So, everybody, myself included.
I was going to say, I saw your name in the credits, so thank you for making this happen.
Yes,
so that we could play this with the game club.
Unfortunately, I willed this into existence.
Single-handedly.
Single-handed. No, me, and the millions of others. So they build this game, and it comes out, and the general reaction is kind of a, oh no, I've been burned.
Yeah, and this was right after Mighty Number 9.
Yeah.
That's very important context.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that. Mighty Number 9 is a whole other thing. I've never played that, but I don't know if I want to do that. So it just kind of left this weird sort of like sour taste in a lot of people. A lot of people that backed the game felt like they had kind of been blinded by nostalgia. And I think that's valid.
Yep.
I really should have like taken notes, but I did just finish the game today, so I haven't really had time to write anything down.
Yeah, so that's why I was asking. Do you want to start with the good points?
Let's start with the good.
I like the music. The soundtrack is very good.
Yeah, so the music is done by Rare veterans Grant Kirkhope and David Wise. Grant Kirkhope, famous for the Banjo-Kazooie soundtracks, among many others, and David Wise for his music in Donkey Kong Country. Both very good, but also very different. So sometimes it's like a little jarring. Like I think the main levels are done by Grant.
Yeah, and then it's like the Kartos missions and the arcade music, I believe, is David Wise.
Yeah, like a lot of the minigame stuff is done by David.
And the ending credits theme for some reason. It was like the best track in the game, and they hid it behind hours of content.
Yeah, I've been struggling to like kind of like figure out like how to describe how to describe their styles. Grant Kirkhope is very kind of bouncy and very big. He often jokes about, he's like, oh, I just go in and go boom 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 boom. That you know, I guess Danny Elfman-esque, that just very loud, very big, fun, bouncy kind of music.
Right.
Which is
everything kind of has that like same kind of background layer that he kind of builds off of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel. Not to take anything away from it, it's very good music.
No, yeah, it's very good.
It's very distinct too. You can always pick up his music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Although same with David Wise.
David Wise is I want to say like more natural, more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like the coolest nature documentary music ever.
Yeah, because he did Donkey Kong Country primarily, I think.
He did Diddy Kong Racing. He did Star Fox Adventures, Tropical Freeze, Snake Pass, and most recently Yooka-Laylee and Impossible Lair. He also did Tengami as well, I believe.
So just this very kind of lively, like fun, sort of wild kind of sound to it. That's just like
more atmospheric too.
Yeah. Which I feel like fits very well with the games like Donkey Kong Country, Star Fox, etc.
Yeah.
Things that are not necessarily like slower paced, but maybe slower paced than a 3D platformer.
Right.
So they're both very good. They're, like I said, there are a couple of moments where like you're in this very like bouncy boom 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 kind of music, and then you go into a Cardo stage, and then you've got like the ukulele and the shakers, and it's just like it's a little jarring sometimes, but it's not bad.
It's also the only thing that got me through those card stages.
We'll get
we'll get to that.
So music is good. I think one thing that I notice is like it's good, but I don't feel like it's I don't feel like it's really Grant's best work. Like some of the tracks are really good, really good. Tribal Stack Tropics is very good.
I was gonna say I liked the Tribal Stack Tropics, the World 2. What was it? The Ice World. I already forgot the name of it. I really liked that.
Glitter Glaze.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
World 5. I liked the space theme that you did.
Mm-hmm. But like the swamp one is kind of.
I can't even remember it.
it's just kind of a moody dark theme. It's not really that unique. It's like I don't know. The Casino is just kind of generic, sort of on the town in Vegas sort of music, but not like in a loungy, fun kind of a way.
Yeah,
just sort of generic background noise.
So I think we talked about this back in 2017, right, when it first came out, but I kind of feel like maybe they should have switched composers. Like, I feel like Kirkhope's style would be better suited towards like mini games.
Yeah. Well, and I think the best track in the game is the final boss fight.
Yes.
And we'll get to that. Keep saying we're going to get to that. But I think that was my favorite track in the whole thing. It's very. It's
Grant or both?
Yeah, Grant.
Okay.
The actual like battle music.
Yeah.
Is very, very good. Grant does a really good job of like selling that vibe of like peril.
Yeah. Yeah, he does do that way better than David Wise, for sure.
I don't know how much I really have more to say about the music. Oh yeah, I was gonna say like I don't feel like this is his best work, because I've recently been playing Mario and Rabbids, which Grant also did the music for, and the music in that is extremely good.
See, that's interesting, because I remember more of the tracks from Yooka-Laylee than I do from Mario plus Rabbids. I mean, maybe that's just me. I thought he did a good job with it, obviously, but his the Mario theme in the hub world is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like the way he did Peach's Castle. The Sherbert Desert is really good. I love how it changes. It changes like the melody doesn't change, but the instruments do, which is a classic move for Grant.
It is. I'd have to go back and listen to that.
Yeah, it's really good, because it's got like these very like. It has these like very strong sort of horns for the desert, but then more bells and softer instruments come in when you walk into the ice areas.
Mm. Yeah, we'll have to go back and listen to that. I remember what is it, like that third area, the spooky area. I remember that one had like one of his best tracks in the game, but again, that's my opinion.
Was it the tentacle boss? Or
just the entire area, like
just the whole area
level. Yeah.
Oh, in Rabbids. Sorry.
Right. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm actually just finishing up the area. I'm still like going through it, but I'm like I think 3/4 of the way through.
That area.
Yeah, I really like it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot. I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna stop talking about rabbits.
Yep.
It's a lot harder than you expect.
Yeah.
But it's fun because of that.
Right. I don't know if you got the DLC for it, but there are some challenge missions that I still haven't beaten.
Yeah, I've dabbled in those, and like even the ones that are like very easy are still like complete this round in one turn. It's like, okay, how?
All right, so I guess we got to get back to Yooka-Laylee, right?
Yeah.
So this is the Podratix music cast.
What's next on the list?
Well, see, I had a positive one
character
here
design.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to talk about that too. I had a positive one here that I'll wait because I think it was a negative for you.
Mixed. I want to say it's a mixed bag for me. I really like the way Yooka looks. I'm not the biggest fan of how Laylee looks. And capital B is like top tier character design for me.
Yeah.
Everybody else kind of Chowser's good too.
Yeah.
The snake wearing pants.
Wearing specifically banjo looking pants.
He's very fun. Everybody else kind of looks bad. I don't know what it is. It's just like not
well,
not really my thing, and I don't know if it's because like I'm very fond of the low poly look that's from the Banjo series, or if I'm just not very familiar with Steve Males, who did the character design. If I'm not very familiar with his style, and I'm just blinded by low poly nostalgia.
Well, some of the characters, like the shopping carts with eyes, just kind of feel like a Unity asset that they put the googly eyes on.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually kind of brings me up to the enemy design.
Yeah.
I didn't think there was
Sorry.
I was just saying, I don't think there's a single enemy that I liked the design of. Like, they basically just use that one base model of the, what are they called?
The gruntlings or whatever.
There's
the moblins.
there's a name for them and I already forgot it. But they're basically in every level just kind of reskinned. And then there's like the big ones that are just really annoying and have a gigantic hitbox.
They have a gigantic hitbox and they take 3 hit points away from you, so they're just a delight to interface with.
They take like 8 hits, 6 hits. They take forever to kill.
And the thing is like you very rarely put in a position where you actually have to fight them. They are less of a threat and more of an annoyance.
Yeah.
Anywhere that they are.
And then my favorite enemy, the googly eyes that take over Unity assets. Now, I never once, all the way to the end of the game, never could figure out the timing of when to hit those things and when they had their invincibility frames before spinning.
What you have to use the sonar shot on them because that'll stun them, and then then you can smack them around.
Okay, so that's user error on my part.
That's fair. Well, but that also plays into an aspect of this game, which is that like there's very like inconsistent design language. It often does a very poor job of explaining what something does, or it's just inconsistent. Like there's a level in the ice. There's a bit in the ice level where you gain the ability to take on the properties of objects that you swallow. So there's like a pit of coals, and you swallow that, then you become like fiery. You don't get fire breath because that's a different fire thing.
Yeah,
you become like hot is your property. So you go through this cave, and then you go to these other fire pits, which you then light as you go because you still have this hot property. Yooka is hot.
Right. How many times did you have to redo that section on the slippery ice bridges?
I didn't have too much problem with that.
Oh, really?
but there's a bit later on in the space world where there's a robot you have to bring. You have to.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You have to make Yuka hot, and you have to go in his mouth, and you have to. In the ice world, you use your tongue move and you light up the fire pits. In this one, you have to jump on the fire pit to activate it. And at no point ever do you have you been told that like this is how it works. And it took me forever to figure that out. And there's stuff like that everywhere.
Yeah, that took me so many tries. I thought I was doing something wrong. Because it was just like I would touch the thing, and like the spot you have to touch to jump on it is very specific. Because I jumped like on the side of it, and like slightly on it, and that didn't count. Meanwhile, there's a fan blowing you off of it the whole time. And by the time you get up, like you have a limited amount of time that you're warmed. Your whole body is like basically on fire, and that goes away like almost right after you enter the area where you need to use it. So if you mess up like one time, then you have to go back and start the whole thing over.
Yeah. So it's stuff like that like here or there isn't really a big deal. Like you'll run into that, but it pops up all over the place, and it's just weirdly inconsistent, and it doesn't make for a good experience.
How about the flying ability? That basically lets you like avoid half the level design after you get it.
I feel like that on the one hand, like I understand why that's not an early ability, but on the other hand, I wish that it were, because it would have made exploring these massive worlds so much more interesting and exciting, because you could get around more quickly and you could get around to more places instead of having to hoof it across the entire map, or roll around. I generally like the movement in this game. Like moving around feels pretty good most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It just never feels like the levels are designed around. I guess like the Tribal Stack Tropics is like probably one of the best worlds for platforming, and it's still not really the greatest.
Yeah. I feel like as much as I liked the flight move to avoid like certain parts of the game that I didn't want to have to deal with, it feels so broken. Like you can just skip things. There's parts where like you're supposed to do something, like, oh, you're supposed to, go into ball form and charge up and fly up this ramp. It's like, or I could sit at the base of it and then use my flight ability and just skip it.
Yeah. And
it's like, on the one hand, I was happy that it was there, but it's like, that really breaks the level design.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, back in Banjo-Kazooie, you could fly around like that, but it required feathers, and you could only do it on certain pads.
Yeah, there were specific spots where you could activate that power, and it was a limited resource.
Right. In this one, you can land.
As an aside, I love and hate the energy bar. I like it as a concept, but it's very badly implemented.
Yeah. I was going to say, it recharges itself after about 3 or 4 seconds, too, of just not using an ability.
That's so bad. I hate it.
So it's like, it's even more broken, because you can just land somewhere. Well, that's if you can get the camera to do what you want and land on the thing that you want to land on.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings me to probably my biggest issue with the entire game, outside of some major design decisions, but the camera's terrible. It's still bad. It's better than it was. I feel like they've patched it since the last time I played it.
Mm-hmm.
But like I had to get used to it, because I got almost sick the first time I entered Tribal Stack Tropics, and you're going through hills and everything, and the camera just is not keeping up. And it's the worst in the flying. It's like you move any degree and the whole camera just swings out like it's drifting.
Yeah, it does a very bad job of like letting you know where you are in space when you're flying, because like whenever you tap the button to fly up, then like the camera will like kind of stick where it is and like look at you as you go up, and then it will like kind of swing up behind you.
And then you have to pull back on the stick, or I guess back on the keyboard if you're playing on without a controller, to be able to land again.
Yeah,
and then that puts it like a weird downward
and die when you hit the ground because you misjudged where you were going to land.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was hinting at earlier with it is kind of broken in that you can just kind of stop somewhere, let it recharge, and then keep flying. But that's if you can land on the place that you want to land on.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we've already gotten a little out of order.
I think we were out of the good points pretty quickly. Do you have any other good points?
The music is good. I like parts of Ivory Towers.
Yeah.
I like the idea of like moving around this corporate building is very fun. It's not as fun as like Grunty's Lair, and it's certainly not as fun as the Isle of Hags. I guess it's better than DK Isle.
It probably is. I mean, I'm kind of blinded by nostalgia there, but yeah, I thought Ivory Towers was, even though it's not really a level, it was probably the best designed level.
Mm-hmm.
The most fun to explore, at least.
The thing is, like, they're like every section typically has like the same kind of visual design. It all looks basically the same. Like, yes, the waterworks look different because they're flooded and they're lily pads, but other than that, it's like the same bricks as everything else.
Yeah, and those same rocks are in almost every level, except the Casino, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get reusing assets. Like, I'm not picking on them too much for that, but it was like they didn't even try to make them look different. It's like, these are space rocks. It's like, this is the same rocks from the first level. And the ice level.
But they're
and the swamp level.
What else? What else is good?
I mean, I'm out. I like some of the characters, and I had music, and then I had one other thing that I think you did not find to be positive. So, and I tried really hard to find positives.
I came into this like holding a torch for this game. Like, no, I knew that like I probably wasn't going to have the best time with this game, but I was confident. You know, it's had time. They've released some fixes for it. Maybe if I just try to enjoy it as its own thing, then I will have a good enough time. And I feel like generally I had a good enough time, but I never had a good enough time to want to keep playing.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I probably wouldn't have finished it if it weren't for doing this podcast. I felt like I had to finish it for this. Especially since I didn't the first time I played it. I stopped at the Casino, which is where I wanted to stop again when I played it again. But
that honestly, the Casino was my saving grace because it was the easiest stage to get the last few pages that I needed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
I got turned around there all the time, especially after the expansion. It's so huge, and there's just stuff everywhere. It's
yeah, but once you figure out that like all you have to do is like win the slot machines and get coins, it's the easiest stage to get pages in.
I guess that's true. Can you grind those?
No, they eventually run out. Like there's a set number of them. They're just the easiest to find because it's the same task.
Okay.
Just in different locations. And when you get the helicopter, you blow up the out of order ones, and you get coins from those. And there are a lot of those around, so you can
I don't
very
think I
quickly.
Did that. I think as soon as I had enough pages to move on, I did.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did, and then I had to go back and get more.
So I had on here controls as a point that I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
I don't know what control. Did you play with a controller or a mouse and keyboard?
Yeah. So I played with an Xbox controller.
Okay. Yeah, so it's probably fairly similar. I have the PS4 version. I didn't feel like buying it again. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, the PS4 version is not very good. It's still locked at 30 frames per second, and there's pop-in everywhere, and it stutters sometimes, even on a PS4 Pro.
So wow.
It was... That only made the camera issues that much worse. That might have been part of my problem, too. It's like, playing the game at 30 is just... Ugh. But, yeah, I had an issue with the controls. Like, I know they were kind of going for, like, the holding the Z button on the 64 controller and then, like, pressing the C buttons. Mm-hmm. But I could, like, for the life of me, it never clicked which trigger did which thing, like crouch versus roll.
Yeah.
And I never remembered. I'm like, I need to do that ability. And I'm just like, is it this one? Is it like triangle L2? No. Is it R2 square? No, that's another one. And then I get hit by stuff.
Yeah, that messed me up a lot too. And it's like I get what you're saying about like they kind of want to make it similar to how it was on the N64, where you would hold the Z button and that's your crouch button, and then from that you do the C buttons and like you can, like you either do like that's kind of how you do a lot of Kazooie stuff,
right?
Like Kazooie will go into Talon Trot mode from that, or Kazooie will fire eggs forward or backwards, or go into Wonder Wing. Yeah. You crouch down and then you can jump using like Kazooie's spring legs. You jump in the air and you hold the crouch button and you'll do the ground pound. You hold it and you do the build drill. Everything is kind of centered around that. But here it is and also isn't, because you have like separate branching moves for like two different crouch modes. You have like crouch regular and crouch rolling.
Right.
And each of those have like two separate extra moves that you can do off of them. And it just feels...
It's more than two. It was like every button on like face button got used with both triggers.
Mm-hmm. So like you it's like it becomes confusing when you're like, I'm crouched, but I want to charge, I don't want to fly. Oh no, I'm using the wrong crouch move.
Yeah.
Or like I want to do the sonic burst, but instead of doing that, I've activated my shield or something.
Right. Yeah, so I that makes me feel better, because I was hoping it wasn't just me that struggled with that.
No, it's just like, and I'm honestly like, I'm not sure what the fix is for that, because like the thing about like the N64 is like that trigger handle works really well like as like the kind of the core of all of the moves.
Right.
I don't really know how that could translate the same way on a modern controller. Like I don't know how I would rebind things or how I would do it.
I think they just have too many abilities in general.
I think like I would have it so that like you crouch down and then like you push the other trigger and then you go into roll mode. You crouch down, you push a button, and then you can do your strong sonar attack, which is this triggered by the same button that you do your regular one, but it's like more powerful because you were in that crouch down mode. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that would probably have been better.
So yeah, I got twisted around a bit by that, and like I'm used to these kind of moves in 3D platformers. So it's like it's all the more frustrating when muscle memory doesn't work.
For sure. So I also had bosses on here. Do you want to touch on that?
I
or do you
think
want to save that?
We can talk about it. I think it sucks so bad that the best boss fight is the last one, because not a single one of the boss fights in this game are good.
I was going to say, so I think the difference here is that I actually genuinely liked the final boss. Like, yeah, I do think it was not only the best, it was, I thought, the only, like, well-designed one. I struggled the most with the World 4 boss. That was my rage moment. I probably had to restart that boss probably 12 to 15 times.
What was World 4's boss? I can't remember.
The Minecart?
Oh.
It's the boss you fight in the game's worst mechanic.
I didn't even finish the regular minecart for the casino.
Oh, okay.
Because like I kept falling off immediately.
The controls are so bad. Like, I don't know how they messed up the minecart. Like, that was the thing they started.
Yeah, it's just
like, they popularized minecart levels in video games in general, and then they messed it up with their own game. I don't know how. So, like, you're just kind of moving at a constant pace, like you'd expect, but it's kind of slow. And then you push forward on the analog stick to boost, and that feels uncontrollable, and it stops at, like, a really weird time. And then if you pull back, you hit the brakes, but it just kind of hits the brakes like, rather than being able to control, like, turning the brakes on and off, you have a brake that you can use, and it just, like, takes 5 seconds of braking as soon as you activate it.
Yeah, it's just very hard to control, and, like, no matter what you do, you're going to mess up. There's, like, no way to avoid screwing up.
Yeah, I probably did except for, like, the first one, I think. Probably Worlds 2 through 5 took me upwards of, like, 5 to 10 tries each to pass. The one in the Galaxy world took me forever.
Yeah, that one's weird because it keeps looping around until you go on, like, the proper track.
Is that the one, or is that the swamp one?
I think that's the Galaxy one. Maybe it's a swamp one.
Because you also have a cannonball that you can fire. Mm-hmm. And you have to be watching, like, the glow of the cannon to know when you can fire the next one. But you can't ever be looking there because you're trying to collect all the gems that you need to beat the level and the flaming walls that you have to avoid.
Yeah.
So that was my big issue with the boss. Is, like, I struggled with the timing on, like, when to boost, when to brake. You have all these, like, intricate patterns of stuff that you have to avoid with some of the worst controls.
Well,
the
thing that makes that adds insult to injury is that, like, you can't plan, you can't learn from your mistakes because the cycles are never synced up. It's never going to be the same way twice in a row. So, like, you're never going to encounter the flame wall at the same time, at the same speed, the second time that you mess up on it.
Right. It's a new thing you have to adapt to every single time.
And it's not fun.
It's not. So I didn't know you skipped the World 4 boss. That's interesting.
Yeah. Not intentionally. I just I guess I just missed it. And that's another thing that kind of ties into level design, is that, like, everything is just so open and aimless, and like there's no the levels aren't designed to kind of, like, lead you through the world, like, even in something like in Banjo-Kazooie, you know, it's still, like, a very, very small world with, like, lots of stuff in it. The design is so aimless and just kind of blank, I guess. Like if you look at Banjo-Kazooie, you know, these aren't terribly big worlds, but there's, like, kind of they're big enough. There's, like, a general, like, there's like a general kind of like path through the level, but you were never required to follow it. It's just sort of like the path is there to lead you towards like all the things that are in the level. And you can go off that path and you can explore everywhere, but it's always there to guide you towards it's towards everything that there is to see. And there's nothing like that in this game.
Yeah. They're very dense. They're small but dense levels. Yooka-Laylee is the opposite. And what makes it worse is that the game only has 5 worlds, and instead of having 10, you just expand the 5 existing ones, which only makes the problem that much worse.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, and the thing that's the most frustrating is that there are really good ideas here, like expanding levels, enemies that possess like random objects. Like that's funny, and it's like that's a funny inside joke about like the rareware in their googly eyes. Like that's fun. Right. But it's just like so poorly done. It's so frustrating because it's like these are good ideas, they're just not hitting home.
Right.
It's just like they're constantly like fumbling.
I feel like that's most of this entire game. Like almost every element could be brought back to that. Like it was a decent idea that just didn't work well. And I think they did a much better job with the idea of like changing each world in the impossible layer. Because in that one, like you're in the overworld, you're making changes to the book that you're entering on the outside, and that changes the properties of the world inside.
Yeah.
So I think that was a much better execution of that. I think they could have done something like that too with this game. I don't think that's like specific to a 2D platformer.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for sure, you pick any one of these worlds, flood it with water, and like you instantly have like an entirely different dynamic for exploring this world. We kind of touched on it, but like, you have a lot of really cool moves. Like you have a move where you can like blow a bubble around yourself underwater and walk underwater and use like your high jump and stuff. So like there are some puzzles that you can only solve by doing that. And they don't really design any of the levels around using these powers. Like there are the odd challenges off the I want to say beaten path, but there's not really a path to speak of. Right. Where like you use these powers out of context, but like other than that, there's no real reason to have these things. Like in Banjo-Kazooie, part of the fun is just like using your abilities to explore these crazy worlds, and there's like apart from the roll move, there's not really a reason to do that. There's not a reason to fly. There's not a reason to roll around, to walk underwater, other than like I feel like doing that because I have nothing better to do. Not because I want to goof around and explore and see what kind of crazy stuff I'll find.
Which is something
maybe
that
I'll find
Super
a
Mario
Jinjo.
Odyssey did. Yeah. I was gonna say Super Mario Odyssey is a really good example of that. Mm-hmm. Of that done well.
Yeah.
Extremely it's like you enter a world and then you get like every world has like what 2 or 3 power-ups. I feel like there's too many for each one. They're used like a few times in that world and then almost never again. And then there's like the odd time in some of like the final worlds where you'll need to use them again, or you can use them. And I forget they exist because it's like the whole time, except when I accidentally activate it because I forgot which ability did what with which trigger. Like I forgot about the bubble thing because you really don't use that again.
Yeah.
You use the shield for like 3 pages and then never again.
It's really helpful for the final boss, I'll tell you that.
Is it?
Yeah, that move where he like sends the bees chasing after you is just insufferable.
Do you know how to beat them?
I couldn't figure it out because it seemed like every time I thought I figured it out, it would change. And at first I thought like you just have to outrun them, And then I thought, okay, well maybe the shield will destroy them, but like you can't really attack them. It seems like the only surefire thing you can do is use the like sonar burst to push them all
I was
away.
gonna say that's the
One
thing you can do.
You're never in a good enough position to do that in that fight.
Right.
And that's a fun move. You use can use the sonar move on like some enemies, but like it also wakes up sleeping statues, and that's done one time.
I was gonna say I kind of forgot you could do that.
It's just like they have so many of these like great ideas, and they hardly seem to know what to do with them.
Do you think
beyond introducing them?
Yuji Naka took inspiration from this game to make Balan Wonderworld? I mean, that's a whole game of wasted potential. And useless power-ups, but anyways, that's a whole nother game.
Yeah,
I gotta look through my notes to see.
I want to say it's possible because from what I've seen, like there's some really interesting like Boxy Fox. That's a fun idea. That's a terrible gameplay mechanic. What if that were an enemy or something? I don't know. Boxy Fox is the one where you just randomly decide to turn into a box beyond your control, and you just continue sliding along.
I'm very much aware of that power-up. It is terrible. Yeah, that was most of the stuff I had, other than that most of the... there's a ton of references, clearly, references to the past Rareware games.
Mm-hmm. I did like the bit. There's a bit where the boss is like, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. Which if you don't know what that's about, Mumbo Jumbo from Banjo-Kazooie has this like kind of like gibberish talk where he's like, you know, ikum bokum, and it's all that's made from chopped up bits of Grant Kirkhope saying, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough.
Yeah,
so that's fun little stuff like that. I didn't cringe as much at all of the references to like, oh, the games these days. Am I right, gamers? You remember what it's really like. All those kind of like cheeky side-eyeing and winking comments.
I just meant some of the more like general design that didn't seem to work, in my opinion. Like having, I get they were trying to like reference Battletoads with like using your tongue to lick in the butterflies, but having the same power up that charges your energy meter and health is not a good idea, based on the way you collect it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always really annoying. The energy bar itself is like it's a good idea. It's another example of a good idea done poorly. Some of your abilities, like you use the roll move, uses energy. The sonar shot uses energy. Invincibility obviously uses energy. Flying uses energy, and like none of these use it very quickly, but it takes so long for your energy to start recharging. It's so frustrating. There's so many times where it's just like you're just waiting for your energy bar to refill so that you can continue playing the game.
Yeah, isn't there a tonic that helps with that?
Yeah, and it shortens it by like a couple of seconds. So it still takes a ridiculous amount of time to recharge.
I just know there were times when I was very low on health that I would accidentally touch a butterfly instead of lick it.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the difference between refilling my bar, that energy meter that would already go up by itself for free if I just waited a couple seconds, or more, I guess, technically.
Yeah, like that really only works for like the races or like challenges where you have to like fly and you run into the butterflies and it refills your energy meter. Like, okay, I get that, but I don't know, beyond that,
It's like, where else do you need the butterflies for energy? I don't think I ever intentionally picked them up outside of races to like intentionally fill my gauge back up. I almost always needed it for health because there were so many times I got hit by a cheap enemy or fell from some height accidentally.
I don't like the enemies in this game.
Yeah, they're
none of them look cool. None of them are fun to fight. The big versions, especially the worst to fight because they take so many hits and they deal so much damage.
Right.
And like they also like a lot of the animation in this game is just feels kind of off in a weird way. That like I don't really know how to describe. Like it just kind of there's like a weird jank to it that is just really uncomfortable. Like it's like the big enemies. They have this move where they're the kind of these beefy guys, and they do this like spin attack.
That's homing.
Yeah, they kind of home in on you, but it's like. I'm trying to think of a way to describe this, but it's like they start spinning and like their model just kind of glides towards you in just a really odd way.
Yeah,
it's like there's stuff like that all over.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, and like the transformations, I didn't think were really fun either. That was something I guess we didn't really touch on either.
Yeah.
Especially like the flower one in the first area. That was near Balan Wonderworld levels of useless. Like you needed it for that one specific task, and then like, all right, you talk to plants, and then you get your pagey.
To be fair. In Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie, the transformations aren't really that much better,
right.
But they're at least more fun to be, even if they aren't very useful. Like they're like there's the T-Rex, which you can be a baby T-Rex or you can be a daddy T-Rex, who's huge and roars very loud, or you can be the armored van, which you really only need to do a couple of things around Witchy World, but like it's invulnerable and it's fun to just mow down enemies with. Right. There's the Snowball, which mechanically is just really cool, and it has very little to actually do in the level. There's like all kinds of like stuff that like even if it's not useful, it's still fun to be. Right. And there's nothing like that.
The things, the stuff that you had to do in Banjo-Kazooie to get the I just lost the name. What's the puzzle piece?
The Jiggy?
Yes, I don't know why I lost that. Like to get the Jiggy, if there's like only one like that you normally have to get per Jiggy, maybe two, like per transformation, but it was kind of right there. And so it's like one little challenge that you had to do. You didn't have to trek like around this gigantic map as this useless transformation. And I kept like finding new things that I had to do with the boat in the final level.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just kind of like, there's those asteroids in the water. I have to go all the way back, transform. And then, like, you have to find some land to be on to transform back into it.
Yeah.
There were way too many things, especially, like, after you expand the world. It doubles the amount of things you have to do with the transformation. So you just keep having to go back and use it. And it's not particularly fun to use. Even, like, with the boost, it's super slow.
Plus, the boss fight for that one was really something.
I was thinking back to it though, and I was like, when has there been a Rareware game with good boss battles? Like, I love their games, but like the Donkey Kong Country games didn't have good boss fights. Battletoads didn't. I don't think the Banjo games had particularly good boss fights. Star Fox Adventures definitely didn't.
I have fond memories of the boss encounters in Banjo-Tooie. Mr. Patch being a particular favorite.
Okay.
Even though it's a little nauseating if you're not used to flying around first person, I still
It can't
really
be worse
enjoy it
than-
just because you're firing grenades at a big balloon animal. So
Okay, that sounds pretty fun. I haven't.
Yeah,
I haven't really
it's so
played
good.
Tui. Okay, of the Rareware games I played, I can't think of any particularly good boss battles. I think Donkey Kong 64, oddly enough, had some of the better ones.
That's
So
another.
I-
That's a game that like I don't think I would ever have the strength to try finishing. It's just such a chore.
Yeah,
Talk about a game that's a chore to play. That's one.
yeah. Maybe we'll have to make that a game club game.
Please no.
The sheer torture. It's a fun game. It's too long and there's way too many collectibles. But
Yeah, and the way that it makes you switch characters to collect specific things is.
if you could swap
just,
on the fly,
yeah,
that would
Or
make
if you
that
could-
game significantly better.
or if you could just pick up everything with whatever character you are.
I mean, where's the fun in that, though, Sophia? Who doesn't like to have to go all the way back to the nearest DK barrel to get the green bananas?
And by the time you do, you've already forgotten where it was.
And then you find the blue coins that you got to collect with Lanky. So then you go back and different game, but yeah, I think you said it best. This game really does feel like a chore to play. It's one of those chores that like it's like that chore that you don't mind doing. Like I don't particularly mind weeding or mowing the lawn, but I would never pick to do it. I don't find it fun, but it's at least like it feels like I'm getting something done. It feels like I'm being productive. I can see what I've done. And I feel like Yooka-Laylee's kind of that in game form.
That's
Like,
a really good way of summing it up.
It's that chore you don't mind doing.
Yeah. You don't choose to do it, but like you'll do it if you have to. If somebody asks you to do it, you'll be like, yeah, okay.
If your co-host on a podcast, for example, asks you to ask for this to be the first game in the game club.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I enjoyed bits of this game, but overall I did not have a good time playing it.
Yeah.
The last fight especially was very frustrating, and I was very happy to see my dead name in the credits. So that was great. that was kind of the final salt on the old wound.
Yeah.
I mean, not much I can really do about that, but
Right.
whatever. I can now say that I have played and beaten Yooka-Laylee, and I don't. Maybe I'll pick it up some other day. I don't think I'm ever going to try and 100% it. I'm not that excited to try and put pants on Yooka.
Is that what you get for 100%ing it?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Tonics. So a big thing that they advertised in the Kickstarter was that like, oh, change the way that you play with Play Tonics, because the company's named Playtonic.
Right.
They're like these potions that you get from this absolutely horrifying refrigerator named Vendy, who just like I don't know.
I hate
don't
her
know.
design so much.
It's probably one of the worst. But like they're generally useful stuff. Like your roll move doesn't use as much energy. Your energy recharges faster. You breathe underwater longer. Stuff like that. But you can only have one of those equipped at a time, which is so weird because in Banjo-Tooie you could have like a whole list of cheat codes active at once.
Right.
There's all kinds of stuff like fall proof, health regain. You could have a cheat that would give you infinite feathers, and it would just say lots in the count.
That's pretty funny.
And you can have like all of those active at once. But in this one, like, and it's also like there are a couple of cosmetic ones. Like there's a 64-bit one that makes the game look like it's running on an N64 through a CRT. and like that's fun, but you can't also have the one that regenerates your stamina active at the same time. So like I'm not sure like another interesting idea, but like poorly done.
If you had like gained the ability to unlock more tonic slots as you played, I think that would have changed a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they were collectible, because there's like the health collectibles that expand your butterfly count.
Well, make it so that like you have a I don't know. There are like 200 quills in each level, and like you have a punch card, and you get a new hole punch whenever you collect all 200, and you take that to Vendy, and she'll be like, "Oh, you got a new hole in your card? Well, let me give you an extra slot for a tonic."
Yeah,
then you would have an incentive to actually collect all of the quills.
What do they actually do? I collected them, but I don't remember what the point was.
I don't actually know. I don't think they do anything because you don't use them to buy anything.
It's crazy that there's 200 of them per level.
No. You use them to buy moves from Trouser.
Oh, that's right.
And that's it.
Yeah, you don't really get anything because I 100%ed the first 3 worlds with quills. I just gave up after that though. But it's like I was saying, it's weird that there's 200 of them in each level because they're so spread out. Like the music notes in Banjo-Kazooie or the bananas in Donkey Kong 64 were like, you'd see a lot of them, and that would kind of be a guide towards the next golden banana or Jiggy. But yeah, that's like they didn't feel like they were leading you anywhere. Like you just kind of find them. Oh, here's one in a corner.
Yeah,
like
just
Mario
sort of
does that too with coins. Like using a base collectible to point you, direct the player towards the meaningful content.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm saying about like I feel like that plays a large factor into like these levels not feeling like they're leading you towards anything,
right?
Because they're like you don't have the base collectible leading you towards the sites and like there are no like landmarks. Like, yeah, there are things in these levels, but there's no unique landmarks, and it's hard to tell where you are because everything looks the same.
Yeah. I struggled the most with the casino, as I think I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
Because the casino level, everything is gigantic. So there's just like tiny little like bug on the floor. And so you can only ever see like the base of the buildings or slot machines or tables. So with your general camera angles, like everything just looks the same. That's when I spent a lot of time just flying around.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to give any closing thoughts? I feel like we did a pretty good job covering most of it, I think.
Yeah, I just I'm kind of upset that I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. I really like I gave it a fair shot, but it just it's not a great game. It's not a horrible game either.
Right.
Which is like just I don't know. That's almost worse is that it's not even like so bad it's good.
Right.
It's just not very memorable. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, this kind of brought me back to where I was before the Impossible Lair, where I like didn't really care about the Yooka-Laylee brand after that game. Mm-hmm. And then like I played Impossible Lair, I was like, oh yeah, I these characters can be done in a a better setting, you know.
Yeah.
I cared more about the...
Yeah, and actually I told you that I picked up Impossible Lair recently because it was on sale.
Right.
And so to give myself a breather from Yooka-Laylee, I started playing a different Yooka-Laylee game. And I was like, this is good. This is charming. The thing my girlfriend said is that like Yooka-Laylee, the 3D platformer, feels very derivative. Like it's just trying to be. It's just trying to be the thing that like it's trying to be the same thing that it is. I'm
inspired by.
Yeah, it is, and it's not. It doesn't have anything new to say. Whereas Impossible Lair feels like it's cute, it's unique, it's interesting, it's different.
Right. And it's like the design of having the final boss playable from the beginning is just like a super hard level, and then like using the levels to increase your health is a really cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like increase your health specifically for that final boss level.
Yeah.
And then the idea of just like exploring a almost top-down Zelda world and then influencing the 2D levels in them. It's like it actually innovated in the 2D platformer space. Whereas I don't feel like Yooka-Laylee did anything. It just kind of did the things that people said they wanted. Again,
I feel like if this game went back in time and released on the N64, but was made by like someone else, it would probably be. I feel like it would fit in very well with those old games, but like as like one of those B grade 3D platformers, stuff like Glover,
Croc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think you're right.
It just it feels very much like it's trying to fit into that space, but it's also trying to do exactly everything that the others are doing, and it's not trying to say anything new.
Right. So I guess the final question is, and I didn't know this until I beat it for the first time, but it sets up for a sequel. Do you think that's going to happen?
I kind of thought that Impossible Lair was the sequel.
No, it's like almost a bit of a reboot. Because this game specifically mentions like the shady organization that's above Ivory Towers. And now, like, just wait till you see those guys. And it's like, I don't think we ever will. But
if they do, I hope that they do it like they do it in a way that's like Banjo-Tooie was different from Banjo-Kazooie in like tone and mechanics.
Right.
Like they're both very similar, but like the tone is very different between the two. And I hope that also they try to do something different and say something rather than just trying to repeat what has already been said.
Right. But I guess, do you think it'll happen from a sales perspective? Because I know Yooka-Laylee did well, but that's because it duped most of the people into buying it. And Impossible Lair, for example, did pretty terribly sales-wise.
I have this feeling in my gut that at some point there will be a sequel. Beyond that, I can't really say. I think I remember one of the things that they said in like their Kickstarter newsletters was that their goal as like as a company, as Playtonic, was to like create interesting characters who could all have like their own spin-offs and games and whatnot, so that they had a lot of different avenues to go down. So it might not even necessarily be a Yooka-Laylee property.
So it could be Vendy.
It could be the Incredible Adventures of Vendy, everybody's favorite nightmare mascot.
Or how about that like Jet Force Gemini girl that you run across in the space world?
Yeah.
It's like her entire character just felt like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, there's so many like there's so many characters that are just like, oh, you're here. You're here. Why?
Maybe that's
Shovel
setting up
Knight.
for yeah, Shovel Knight was like one of the weirdest.
I heard. I didn't realize this until somebody posted it on Twitter. But there's like a weird habit, or there's like a weird trend of Shovel Knight appearing in bad games that aren't his own.
What other games? I can't think of. I mean, he's in Rivals of Aether.
Brawlhalla, I think. Probably like a couple of other indie games that didn't do so hot, but I can't remember. That's just something that I heard, and it just kind of like, I thought that was funny because I knew that he was in Yooka-Laylee.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh yeah, why is he in Yooka-Laylee? Like, and that it's so funny because like that was a big thing that like they made like a big deal about it like during the Kickstarter days. Like, oh, we're excited to announce that we're partnering with Yacht Club Games to put Shovel Knight in the game, and he's there technically twice. Once in Tribal Stack Tropics, where he tells you, "Hey, I have a gem. Can you go get it?" So you do, and then he gives you a page, and then he shows up again at the barbecue party. After you beat the final boss, and he doesn't even say it. He's just there.
Yep. He didn't help with the final boss. That would have been nice.
he just was around.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool, I guess. I thought it was really funny as the camera's like showing all the characters in the game. It's like, wow, look at all the friends that I've made.
Yeah, it was
just
that
like,
ending.
and just like feeling nothing for any of them.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's just like that ending felt so dead because it was like, I don't care about any of these characters.
Yeah.
I thought Capital B was like one of the best.
Yeah,
So,
I absolutely love him. Like his whole thing where like he speaks in the whole joke is that he speaks in buzzwords.
yeah.
And like his design is so good, like that. Him and Yuka are like the best looking characters in this game. Everybody else looks like garbage, and I don't know why.
That actually reminded me real quick when we were talking about like things that just kind of felt like they were, well, you know, Banjo-Kazooie did this, or you know, Battletoads did this, like, so we'll do it in our game. But the quiz bridges, of all the things to pull from Banjo-Kazooie, that was the worst part of that game, the original Banjo-Kazooie. Why would you bring it back? Now, it's not nearly as difficult and it's not nearly as long, but it's just like it's so like weirdly unnecessary.
It is worse than the quizzes in either of the Banjo games, because in those games, like it asks you to recall places, characters, and things like that, and you have to try. In this one, it's like how many bricks were on the ceiling. Just like really esoteric things like that. Just really like nonsense, absolute nonsense questions. How many of this item have you collected so far?
Yeah,
and also it's the most boring of them all. The first game had like a game board that you're running across with different tiles, so like you had some sort of like you had some kind of agency in what happened. In the second game, it was like a quiz. It was like an actual quiz show, and you were competing against Grunty's sisters. So like you had to try and like beat them before they answered the questions, or you had to hope that they would get the questions wrong and that you could steal it. So like there was more of a game to it, and it was more exciting and more fun. And also you actually knew the answers to the questions because the questions weren't garbage. It wasn't how many breaths have you taken since you woke up this morning.
Yeah, that was one thing. I never liked the quiz board game in Banjo-Kazooie. I still hate that part every time I play through that game. Because I just never feel like doing it when I get to the final boss. I just want to finish the game. But like this, it's not even just at the end. Like it's every time you need to move on to the next area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, it's not nearly as long. You just kind of always move 2 spaces. He's like, it's a bonus. I'm like, what did I do?
I think if you answer quickly, it's a bonus.
I guess so. I mean, my experience is like, even though there were some weird questions, the answer was usually like pretty easy, like that, because it's multiple choice. So like with the how many hours have you played on this file or whatever, and it's like it give me some like 2 generic times and then one that was very specific, and like, oh, it's that one clearly. I mean, I don't know how many hours I've spent playing, but
yeah, and it goes like, this is a sentiment that I've heard other people mention, is that like it often feels like the people playing the game are being made fun of, and it's not like a joke that we're all sharing. It's like we're the butt of the joke. It's like, oh, this annoying thing that was in the old games, isn't it funny that annoying thing is in our game? No, it's just bad and annoying.
I hadn't really thought about it like that, but yeah.
And it's stuff like that. Like that was I've never actually played it, but like from what I've heard, like Duke Nukem Forever was based. That was just like the whole game was that it was just kind of this pandering. Like there's this bit where he's like, you have to like turn all these different valves, and he's like, oh, I hate valve puzzles, talking about like in Half-Life when you have to solve a bunch of different puzzles in order to progress.
Yeah.
And it's like, you cannot make that joke while also making me do the thing that you're joking about.
Yeah,
it's not funny and it's not fun.
It's not good game design, like, because it's not. Yeah, you're right. It's not funny. Like you're doing the bad thing too. It's like in Breath of the Wild with the Korok seeds, where they kind of use collecting all of the Korok seeds as like a joke. You know, they're basically, tree poo. And then you get like a really big swirly poo at the end for collecting all of them. And they kind of make fun of like people who collect all of those things. But it's like, you put 900 of them in your game. Like, you did the Ubisoft thing. You can't make fun of it and have it in your game at the same time.
Right.
But
and it just feels like really insincere.
Right.
Like, like it also feels hurtful, like as somebody that like contributed towards bringing this into existence. It feels like a little bit like being kind of slapped.
I can see that. Yeah.
Like, you're an idiot. You like this?
That's an interesting perspective.
You think this is cool? So,
I mean, clearly you do. You backed it, right? I mean, yeah. That
yeah.
I guess I do see how
you
that,
paid for Toy Box Plus. An interesting fun fact: the Toy Box demo of the game is a lot more fun than the full game.
I remember you bringing over that version on your laptop, and we spent like quite a bit of time playing it. I was like, oh wow, this game is going to be great. Like, if the demo stage with like some random geometry and stuff is this much fun. If only we knew.
If only we knew. But
so
now we know.
Yeah. Twice over.
Well, we got to put this in a time capsule and send it backwards in time so that the prior generations can learn.
But if we didn't get this game, though, it would have led to us not getting Impossible Lair. And that was one of my new favorite games of the generation. So at least it did that much. So I guess we should wrap up the Yooka-Laylee discussion.
Yeah, I would say if you can get it on sale, or if you want to pirate it, I would say it's worth poking at. It's worth playing, but I wouldn't really worry so much about like investing a large amount of time into it. If you're really that curious, I would watch somebody else play it. There's really no reason to do that to yourself.
Yeah, I would agree.
It just sucks because like I really wanted to like this game, and like from the get-go it just frustrated me. I don't even like the story. Like the story in Banjo-Kazooie is like your sister got kidnapped by the big bad witch, you gotta go save her. And in the second game it's like, oh shoot, the big bad witch murdered Bottles the mole, oh we gotta go stop her. And it's like, this is so goofy and stupid, but like it's, I don't know, something about it is fun. This one, it's like, we somehow have a magic book and it's been stolen, and we don't care about the book, but gosh darn it, do we want that book back?
Yeah, you're right. That's not even.
It just felt so like. It felt the most like paper thin excuse to be doing whatever it is that we're doing.
Was that an intentional pun?
No, it was not.
Paper thin.
So I guess that's my final thought on it. So overall, I'd say 7 out of 10. Too much water.
I was just thinking about trying to make a joke about that.
7 out of 10. Too much. Too little game. No, I don't know. I'd probably give it like a 4 out of 10. If I had to put it on a scale, I guess I would. That's what I would give it.
It also, like, it didn't help the game that it launched in the same year as A Hat in Time and Super Mario Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the two like best 3D platformers of the last few years.
Hmm. Yeah, A Hat in Time is still so much fun to pick up and play. Like, it's still definitely rough, but it's still is like at its core is just such a delight to play. Like, even if the story's not that great and like the usually isn't in a 3D platformer, it's still just a joy to play.
I still actually need to play it.
Well, maybe that'll be your backlog game.
Yeah, it's not going to be tonight's. I guess that's a good segment into the backlog segment, which we need a name for. Backlog segment just doesn't have any ring to it, but so this
the shelf.
Yeah, the shelf. That's not bad. This week, I chose. I was looking through my Switch's re-download list because that's where all of the games that I bought for less than 20 cents are located. So I chose one of those games. Actually, this one I believe was 20 cents exactly. So it's a game called Bridge Strike, and it's basically the spiritual successor to River Raid on the Atari 2600. It's like River Raid, but boring.
Tell me more.
So, like, River Raid's not like it's a classic. It's a 2600 classic, but it's a lot easier to die. And I find this is the case with a lot of these like modern arcade style games. Is they think that, oh, well, that was just like the fact that games ended so quickly in the arcades was because they were just trying to get you off the machine, which is true. You know, get you to put more money in there or get off so someone else can play. But like, part of the joy of classic arcade games is that they're short. You know, like, you can play it, have your fun, and then, you know, be done with it. And this game just drags on because, like, it's so hard to die. There's so few enemies. There's, like, occasionally a helicopter. There's bridges that you just blow up in one hit. You collect coins. Occasionally, when you die, you can use those coins to revive yourself and keep going. Because this was, and I had a feeling, I was like, this feels like a mobile game. And it is. So it's free to play on Android and I believe iOS as well. But it's costs money on Switch. Aren't we lucky?
Aw. Can't have nice things on the Switch.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say. I was kind of hoping it'd be like a a hidden gem or be terrible, so I'd have something to say about it, but it's very mediocre. There's like an endless mode, and then there's...
What kind of game is it?
Oh, I should have even mentioned that. I just assumed everyone knew what River Raid was, apparently. It's a top-down, it's a scrolling shooter. It's an old-school shmup. And it's like a vertical scrolling.
Okay.
And it's really slow. You can break and even kind of go backward. So if you missed anything, you can just kind of avoid everything. There's little warnings of like ships that will fly in from the side, but they give you plenty of time and you can just hit the brakes and they go right past you. There's a mission mode, which has like 3 different campaigns, and they're all just like, destroy 10 bridges. And then the next mission is destroy 10 bridges. And then the next mission is like, destroy 5 tanks. So I didn't make it any further than the 3rd mission. So I don't know what's beyond that. Yeah, I guess the only issue I really have with it, besides the fact that it's so easy it's boring, is that there are like occasionally times where you'll go down to the right because there's something there, and then you realize like the camera's scrolled too far and you're just going to run into a wall and there's nothing you can do about it. Like there's just dead ends. And it feels like it's been randomized. I don't know if it is because I replayed the endless mode twice and it seemed like it was the exact same map. But I can't imagine anyone putting a coin down to a dead end where you can't get back from it. I don't know. Maybe it is that poorly designed. But, yeah, kind of a boring one. But I wanted to get through some of the super cheap games I picked up on Switch. And I should have picked a more interesting one.
Well, maybe next week.
You definitely seem like you got a better game this week with Witcher 3.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still kind of on the fence about it. I like things about it, but at the same time, it's also... There's a lot of traveling. And I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
I a couple of times have found myself falling asleep while playing it.
Oh,
so
wow. That's
maybe not the game for me, but we'll see. I want to keep giving it a try because I like the setting and I like the characters so far.
I've heard so many people call this like the game of the generation, so I'm very interested to hear a different opinion.
Yeah. I'll be sure to regale you with all there is to know about it that I experienced.
All right, well, that was our show for this week. Mostly Yooka-Laylee.
Yeah. What are we gonna play next?
So for our next Podratix Game Club game, we decided on the original Sonic the Hedgehog on Sega Genesis, not to be confused with Sonic the Hedgehog Master System or Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. It's wonderful that there's a series with 3 games with the exact same name that are all completely different.
I can't wait till they make the next Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, when are we getting 2?
Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
So yeah, it's partially to celebrate the franchise's 30th anniversary, which is this year. And then also because it felt like we kind of needed a shorter game after Yooka-Laylee.
A shorter, brisker game.
Definitely briskers. Yeah, so we'll have enough time to play this one that we should be able to at least play through it maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know if I'm going to try it. Does that have Chaos Emeralds in it?
It does. I have never been able to get all of them, so maybe I'll try that with this.
I'm just going to enjoy playing it. I don't think I'm going to try necessarily so hard to 100% it.
Again, I've played the games, that's one of those games that I played since, I don't know, 9? Since I was 8 or 9.
I have a weird history with the series. My cousin had a couple of the games on PC, and every so often when I went to the dentist, he had a Genesis in the waiting room, so I would get to play that while I was waiting. And then when I was a little bit older, I had borrowed from a different cousin a copy of Sonic Advance 2, and also I had seen a handful of episodes from the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon, the one with Scratch and Grounder.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of like that's the Sonic that I grew up with. Just kind of a weird mishmash of all sides of Sonic. No Sonic X, no Sonic Adventure. I think I had one Sonic comic book, and it was like one of those like long running arcs that's just like you can't really jump in the middle of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And expect to know what's going on.
That is a weird history with Sonic.
So, I have played the first game. I don't think I've ever finished it, but I'm excited. I'm excited to play an easier game.
Yeah.
A shorter game.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure it's more engaging at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess we'll do that until, what, should we make it to the 1st of the following month, since that's kind of what we did with this one? So first week in August?
Do we need to wait that long?
I mean, not necessarily. I guess it depends on, we don't really have a set time like per game length.
Yeah, that's true. Well, let's not set a date then. Let's kind of play it by ear and see what we're feeling like.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
But when we know, you'll know.
Considering we didn't really have a name until episode 4, and even then that was just like a placeholder that we used long enough that it just became our name. It might be a while, but
welcome
again, this is an early
podcast show.
It's an early access podcast.
Yeah, we're still developing.
Still adding production value.
Steam early access podcasting.
All right, so I think I already said it, but that was our show for this week.
Yeah, thanks for listening. I hope that you have a good Sonic's anniversary. Have a safe 4th of July. It will have passed by the time you hear this, I'm sure. But take care.
That's the best ending to a podcast ever.
Don't blow up because of the fireworks.